Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and today I kicked Brian E. Roach over to the side. Actually, he just wasn't available. Last time I covered for him, I said he was on assignment. It sounded really brilliant and smart, but he's goofing off somewhere. And I could already tell that my co-pilot today is kind of giggling in the background. I don't know if this reference will go over your head. Usually I use maybe a comic book or some type of duo or tag team type pop culture reference to describe myself and Brian on every show just about. So today I'm going to say the Black Widow to my Hawkeye. Does that go over your head, Terry, or do you follow the Avengers reference there?
Well, it definitely goes over my head, but I think I've heard enough of it to understand where you're going with that.
Well, anyway, in the first Avengers film, those two were kind of the friends, and they kind of joined the Avengers there in that movie several years ago. So, Terry Fletcher, everybody, welcome back, Terry. How you been?
I've been good. We're heading into spring, and actually the weather is great, and I see you guys are starting to get some weather. That's good. So.
Good and bad. I was telling you all of my anguish here because I want the cold weather back. I know this may seem blasphemy to some, but you know what? I could just sit on my butt, and there's no kids outside because it's cold. They don't want to be outside. It's cold. Stay in, play video games, play on your phone. I like that. That's cool. I don't have to cut grass because it doesn't grow, and there might be snow on the ground. I like all these things. Now I got other stuff preoccupying my time, and I could really do without the nice weather. So, yeah, I need to move into an apartment instead or something like that because it's too much work. I already realized it, and it's only May, so that means now I got to deal with this for 2 months of good weather. So just wait until the pool opens. That's about another few weeks here before it's warm enough, and then I'll get to enjoy it for about 5 weeks, and then have to close it again because of the way the weather is here. But you don't deal with that. You have pool weather almost 12 months out of the year in sunny Southern California.
We do. We're all year round, and as we are talking football all year round. So
yeah, we are
today.
Yeah, I don't want to talk football. I want to talk other stuff. You know what? I'm the host who loves toast, and I finally got to open the toaster you sent as the gag because my other toaster went bad. And if I told that to Brian, he would not appreciate that in the same way. So I have to get that off my chest here since someone mentioned it not too long ago. The whole toaster effort. They mentioned it to you. You're the one who brought it up.
They did. They're like, what are you guys talking about there? And I kind of went into it, and I'm like, let's just say that Joe was worthy of a 4-slice and Brian only got the 2-slice.
That's the way it usually goes. That's why sometimes I said I'm Wayne and he's Garth, so he hates that one. Actually, you know what? Toast isn't the only thing you could do in a toaster. My daughter, she's about 4.5 years old. She loves Eggos. So you put the Eggos in the toaster. So you know what? I wonder if Brian's against waffles too, because then we may have a really big problem. And he's going to crack up when he hears all this because he's got his no doubt he listens to this on his commute back and forth there in New Jersey. So, but yeah, you know what? We do have some football things to talk about. I was going to joke about this with you, actually. This is perfect that you're here. I was calling you Terry, quote, Bradshaw Fletcher for a while, and I know that irritated you because Terry Bradshaw has turned into this ornery, just goofy older guy that, says all kind of strange things, usually derogatory things. Hey, are you there? Are you cutting out on me?
I'm sorry, I am here. Sorry about that.
Okay, that may have cut. I don't know if that was if that actually is going to end up in the final show here, but yeah, I thought you hung up on me because I called you Terry Bradshaw Fletcher.
Yeah, I almost did though. I mean, the one thing people have to realize with that reference, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this. I've never seen Terry Bradshaw play football. I've seen him in his crappy movies that he's on. But I came into the Steelers as a fan in the Tommy Maddox hurt himself era, and I'm walking by the television, and all of a sudden saw Ben Roethlisberger go in for him, and the rest is history. I never looked back. So,
well, I'm too young.
I never saw him play.
Yeah, I'm too young to know Terry Bradshaw. I was born in '81, so I was a little boy up through the miserable dark ages, as Brian calls it, since he's a very old man and remembers all these things somehow. He hasn't lost his mind yet that we know of. And we're talking about Brian a lot, man. I'm throwing some shade his way. Oh, we got some shade that's been thrown. That's what we're going to talk about. But I brought up Terry Bradshaw for a very specific reason, and the shade for a very specific reason, because it just seems like maybe quarterbacks, the longer they stay or they've been around with the Steelers organization or associated with them, they tend to do and say crazy things. I mean, you got Terry Bradshaw, you had Cordell Stewart, who was found in the park on the park bench doing whatever ages ago too, and now you have Ben Roethlisberger, who hasn't been any short of controversy over his career. There's the things and stuff with partying with women we won't get into that people down in Cincinnati always love to talk about because they don't have anything good to say about their own quarterback. And then you got, Ben had a motorcycle accident at one point, and then he was, flirting and throwing out words that sounded like retirement that I said back then were all blown out of proportion. Now we have something else that's been completely blown out of proportion. On Friday, he was on 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. He has his normal Ben Roethlisberger radio show is usually, Tuesdays during this season, unless, it's not a Sunday game, then it might get bumped. And he had a special show. I think they wanted to speak to him, Ron Cook and Andrew Filipponi, the hosts over there on the radio, and they wanted to speak to him about, some of the occurrences going on with the Steelers and the NFL draft. And they really, I won't even say that Ron Cook and Andrew Filipponi really made this the way it is. I want to say the media cherry-picked some of the quotes that Ben had said and then decided to maybe, I don't know, I like to call it clickbait. I like to say the TMZ sensationalism, of the world. Did you get the same impression as I did that maybe there's not as much as people were making this out to be like a bad or negative thing from Ben?
Yeah, I think he was just responding to some leading questions, that they like to do. I mean, it wouldn't be a show people would listen to unless they had some leading questions. I think Ben was being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think part of it, and everybody, and I say everybody, I think some of the interesting people that write in the media that, you and I follow and just kind of roll our eyes, but they tend to always think that anything Ben says that's not politically correct is negative or throwing the organization under the bus, and he never does that. He was questioning why we would take a quarterback in the third round of the draft when we need defensive help with Ryan Shazier on the physically on PUP list, and so that made sense. I mean, to me, I was like, yeah, I actually kind of want to know that question too. I don't think all of our safeties are going to be able to really transform to inside linebackers that we have, but I think that his comment about in response to something that Rudolph said, which I think also was blown out of proportion. Somebody said, you're going to learn from Ben or expect Ben to teach you? He goes, no, I expect to learn myself. And, and if I have a question, I'll ask. And then Ben in response said, maybe I'll just have him look at the playbook. They were both basically bantering off each other with no intent to put anybody in a negative light.
No, I don't think any of it was really negative. Let's say the first thing here is I think Ben is close to being a professional troll. I know that, especially yourself, we know some of the people who help with Ben's, social media, and he blocks people, and it really gets on some nerves, and it's going to get on some more nerves when some people found out they were blocked over the weekend. But Ben, as much as he says he isn't on whatever platforms, we know he pays attention, and he definitely had to have paid attention to have caught part of what Rudolph said. Unfortunately, I think Ben did the headline reading that a lot of people were doing with this interview as well. Some of these headlines, oh my goodness, they're so bad. You know what? I got to look them up. I screen capped some of them, and I just thought I don't have them up on my screen. But I wanted to bring up the exact quote from Mason Rudolph. This was the conference call following when he was drafted in the third round 2 weeks ago now, maybe. And they asked him, how do you view the situation you're coming into? He says things about being a competitive person, getting up to the playbook and getting the throws in and blah, 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 and competing. He says here, It's not Ben's job to teach me anything. It's my job to learn, and that is the way I am going to look at it. Obviously, you're sitting behind an unbelievable player and a good dude, so we'll just kind of take it day by day and try to learn what I can each and every day. That was taken out of proportion to begin with the context of it. You know, he's talking about getting reps and stuff. He says it's not Ben's job to teach me anything, and that's kind of what Ben was when they asked him this. He snickered. And he sounded like, you know, it was sarcasm on his part, and people took that as he's not going to mentor anyone. I'm just going to give that job over to Landry Jones.
Yeah, and the thing that bugs me too is I don't think people realize that, and I hate to bring up the retirement talk, but it's obvious. I don't care how many times Haley said that he did not say, "Shut the F up, Ben," on TV, but we read lips. I mean, my mom was deaf. I don't know if you know that. And so we learned to read lips because she read lips. And so we are good at it. And so it was interesting because I'm like, of course he was talking to Ben. And so that they didn't renew his contract and he went to Browns, right? So it's just like, Ben's happy. Ben's like, okay, good. I got Randy in there now. I've got a good team, which I had before, but now, you know, we got rid of some of the riffraff with Martavis moving on. And now there's a lot of things going on where he went to the brass and said, I'm good for 3 to 5 years. And I truly believe, Joe, it's also him seeing these $30 million to $100 million contracts for lesser players. I mean, he gives a lot to charity. And so I think that part that has to have something to do with it. But the thing that I think people miss here is that he's probably thinking, if I've given you a window, and Ben is pretty much that window. I truly believe when he says it versus the Terry Bradshaws of the past, I think he really believes that's what he can do as far as his body holds up. I'm sure he's thinking, well, we already have a crowded quarterback room. And Landry, regardless of what you think about him, he knows the book. He knows Ben. He knows the plays. He's a respectable backup. I'm not really sold on Dobbs, so I don't know. But I just think people took it way out of proportion.
Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know what the book's going to be like since it is a new offensive coordinator. Maybe things carry over. I'm sure it's not going to be any radical changes. And I'm sure, you know, it's not like Randy's coming into this new, Randy Fichtner, the new OC. He was the quarterback's coach. He's kind of still the quarterback's coach. That's what kind of irritated me, too, was listening to this interview. You have a local sports radio guy who isn't a Pittsburgh guy, and for all intents and purposes, he doesn't say it on the air, but you could tell he's not a Pittsburgh sports fan either. I called him a poor man Skip Bayless, basically. He's, you know, trying to get a reaction out of someone. Or even like Mark Madden, who is a Pittsburgh guy, and everything he does is to get a reaction. And, you know, he's asking some of these questions and that, and he doesn't know whether or not they have a quarterback's coach, which, you know, it's good to get clarification from Ben, but it seems like Ben's kind of, these players this is their off season. This is their time with family. This is their time to, I don't know, do rap music or spend time with their kids or whatever it is that they do. And, you know, they're not plugged into all the draft stuff. They have some probably casual conversations and whatnot. But they're not at the job, okay? So it's just, I don't know, that rubbed me the wrong way that they didn't know necessarily. You know, it would be like me not being informed and interviewing Ben Roethlisberger and asking him a question like that. Now, that said, playbook may or may not be the same. We've talked about, myself and Brian, as far as the quarterback depth chart. Dobbs is going to be a second-year guy, but he's never even had a helmet. Maybe the last game of the season he was active, but he wasn't active the whole season. He's never thrown a regular season pass in the NFL. So we don't know. We don't have a lot to go by. The coaches know more than what we do because they're in those closed practices and get to see him throw. But you got to assume that Mason Rudolph has the roster spot, so it's got to be between Landry and Josh Dobbs. And, you know, do you keep the experienced guy or whatever? You know how I feel about Landry Jones, so I don't think I need to go down that path again. But the thing that really rubbed me the wrong way, you know, Ben's talking about he feels for Landry Jones, he feels for Josh Dobbs, and he asked whether or not that pick was a waste last year on Josh Dobbs because he said he sees how hard these guys work, and he feels bad for him because he didn't get into the details, but it's the same thing that we're all saying. Actually, everything Ben's saying is pretty honest. It's not Peyton Manning like, well, we're going to go to camp and this should be interesting. The boring, vanilla response that, not going to get you into trouble. Ben's being honest and he's saying all the things that you or I or Brian or anyone else with Steel City Underground or me talking to family and friends and my cousins and everybody that's connected with football, we said all the same things. Some of these picks are for winning now. Some of these picks are for winning later. I think Noah's the one who said that first. And this is what they took from all of that, of what he's saying. They're probably going to keep 3 quarterbacks. This is the headline. This is Bleacher Report. This is actually the notification I received on my phone. I pulled this up. The bold part, the title says, Big Ben mad about drafting QB. Roethlisberger throws shade at Steelers after drafting Mason Rudolph. Thought they'd pick someone to, quote, help win now. And then they put like a little like emoji smile with it. And then if you were to actually tap on that and go to their site, the headline's different. It says Big Ben won't mentor Rudolph, surprised by pick. I just hear like shaking my head. Now, he was surprised at the pick. There's a direct quote from him saying he was surprised because he didn't think that they were going to take a quarterback just based on the conversations he's had recently with the coaching staff, with Mike Tomlin and everyone else, saying he feels good. The offensive line's been great. He hasn't been getting hit as much, barring any setbacks in his health and everything. He feels he could play 3 to 5 years. That's always been our argument against drafting a quarterback, because anybody you draft is only going to be anyone outside the first round. You can't keep beyond those 4 years without re-signing. You got a 4-year window for the Mason Rudolph era, if it ever even gets off the ground. We don't know if he's any good. If he's really good and Ben still wants to play, you're back at Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers type situation. So Ben's a little perturbed at that, and I think he feels that this is somewhat of a threat to, however much longer that door's open for his NFL career.
Well, and I agree, and I don't think we see that quarterback sitting behind anybody is like we did with the Favre Rodgers thing. But even more one of the headlines I saw this morning was the Sports Illustrated, which is interesting because it says you think that Ben Roethlisberger might have learned something from the quarterback whose job he took, and it's on their NFL opinion page. So, Robert Kamlecko, who writes often for them, and the other one, Peter King, I'm not a fan of, but I don't mind saying that out loud because he's very controversial. I understand he's a Hall of Fame writer, but that doesn't make every fan happy with what you write. But the one thing that was brought up was, and I thought this was unfair, and again, it's on their opinion page, but he said, you're right about one thing, Ben, you owe, quote unquote, you owe to, because of what Maddox did for him. So you owe Rudolph to, to be able to do that. He doesn't owe anybody anything. And so to say that he owes something, I think one thing people miss in all this, and this is kind of what I was thinking about before that I missed, these players that are coming out of college, they're used to playing every single play. Especially the quarterbacks anyway. There's too many players for everybody else to play every single play, but they're used to playing all the time. Well, that was Chip Kelly's issue because he had 100 players in college and didn't have that in the NFL, so that doesn't work. But when you're dealing with, playing all the time and then all of a sudden you get drafted, you're being paid millions of dollars to sit and learn. And I'm like, wait, I already know football. It's like, well, you don't really know the speed of NFL, the playbook, how big these guys are coming after you and they want your head, And so it's just interesting because I think people are like, oh, well, we drafted him and he's going to be fine with just learning and all this. These guys are out there wanting to play now too. And so when he's gone to a team now that, and I actually like him. I went back and actually, once they said that they were even looking at him, because they looked at him a lot, I went back and looked at a couple tape and looked at a couple things on him. And I think he's going to be in the quarterback room for some time. I think if they keep him, which I'm assuming they will behind Ben, I think they made a good pick. I think they made it early, but I think they made a really good pick. So it's interesting to see what'll play with all this.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to Jimmy Garoppolo and just not knowing how long Tom Brady's going to end up playing. I mean, you know what I mean? You don't know.
Oh, well, you know what? Let me interrupt you real quick. Did you see what Tom Brady said about his organization and how he took issue with it?
Yeah, you know what?
About plead the fifth?
Uh-huh.
It's like, they don't even, he's like, do you think they support you or even like you? I don't even remember the question, but I plead the fifth, and I'm like, why isn't anybody saying anything about that?
No, they are. They are. It's just that in Pittsburgh, we could only hear Ben Roethlisberger. And, Tom Brady walks on water. But Tom Brady, you know what? Ben and Tom Brady, the same type of situation. Brady got his shot. They drafted him, and Drew Bledsoe was the starter. And Drew Bledsoe went down to an injury, and they stuck with Tom Brady the whole way. And it sucks when a quarterback loses their job due to injury, but the same thing you were just talking about this. That was Tommy Maddox. And I was a big fan of the Tommy gun back in the day, too. And he went through like hell or high water to get back into the NFL. He went to the XFL, and he won, I think, the league's MVP there. The only season they had, they won the championship game that they had for that single year. And then he kind of walked on to the Steelers in the training camp, got a shot because he was miserable. He wasn't very good. They had him almost lined up to take over for John Elway with Denver, and it didn't work out. And he was selling insurance for 2 or 3 years, and lo and behold, he makes his way back into the NFL, works his way into a spot, I believe, for Cordell Stewart, if I remember correctly. And he didn't have like maybe the best seasons with Pittsburgh, but he was still above average, especially compared to some of the quarterbacking that we were used to for many, many years here in Pittsburgh. And lo and behold, he gets hurt. He didn't think they were going to draft a quarterback. He thought they were going to draft offensive line because he was getting hit like a piñata. I think he was like, there were only 3 guys more. There was a Sports Illustrated article about that too, I think. And it was 3 guys more that one season that right before Ben came on. 3 more guys got sacked more than Maddox, is what I was trying to say. And he thought for certain that they were going to draft offensive line help, and here they go, and they move up in the draft or whatever and select Ben Roethlisberger, and then all of a sudden Maddox gets hurt 3 games in, and Ben Roethlisberger's the guy, and they never looked back from that. And not to say that it's a bad decision. These are tough decisions to make when you're a coaching staff, when you're a front office, when you're a general manager. But Maddox was easy because he didn't have much of a contract. He was cheap. He was looking to get a better contract. They get a younger guy, and all of a sudden, he was easy to discard. It will not be that easy to discard somebody like Ben Roethlisberger that's your all-time franchise guy, especially if he's still going to want to play. However, when you're there on radio shows like this, and you're kind of trolling everyone, and you're talking about, hey, I don't know. I got to reevaluate everything. Are you talking about retirement, Ben? Are you talking about retirement? Well, I'm not necessarily saying I'm not going to play next season, but, and there's that but or whatever, you're hinting at, maybe this gunslinger doesn't have it anymore. And you're saying things of that nature. And I know that's probably all like a passive aggressive, I'm threatening to sit or not play unless Todd Haley is run out of town.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I thought.
Honestly, I mean, that's what we all thought. And Ben never came out and said it, but he did come out and say a lot of these other things. But then on the flip side, he's saying he's surprised about them taking a quarterback. Well, what do you expect? You don't know. And we know Landry Jones isn't going to be the starter. Landry Jones is entering like his 7th year in the NFL. He's not a young guy anymore. They got to start looking at somebody else because you're not going to have Landry Jones step into a starting role. Ben plays 3 more years and Landry Jones a 10-year backup, and he hasn't improved any. That's still not a game plan to move forward. How much longer can he even last? You know what I mean? Even if he was the plan, you know what I mean? So they got to look at a younger guy. Ben shouldn't be that surprised based on those metrics. I think the only reason he's surprised is because they took Dobbs last year, and now he's feeling like, well, they're wasting these picks on quarterbacks instead of guys who could win or help us win now. But when me and Brian looked at this and looked who was on the board with the draft and stuff like that, I think they did get some win now guys. I mean, Terrell Edmonds, not bad at all. It just depends on the value. I mean, you're assigning a 3rd-round grade to somebody. Once their foot's in the door, you've got to go back to Antonio Brown. Foot's in the door. It doesn't matter anymore. You're an NFL player, and you're going to contribute however that may be. Vince Williams, 6th-rounder, guys like that. Not everybody gets to be a 1st-rounder. It doesn't really matter if you're a 3rd-rounder. If you're a good player, you're a good player. If you're a bad player, you're a bad player. So I don't necessarily like that part of what Ben said, but the whole surprise thing, it's like, come on, man, really? You're surprised? You had to think he didn't react like this with Josh Dobbs. I think the only reason is because Josh Dobbs, they didn't have people drooling over Josh Dobbs in the same way that all of these scouts were drooling over Mason Rudolph and projecting him to maybe be a first-round pick. I think he feels maybe a little threatened now that his, cat and mouse year by year, I might play 1 year, I might be retiring, I might play 3, I might play 5. He can't play those type of games anymore, and they may actually put a timetable on this, and you know what I mean? He feels threatened. I'll say that again. He feels threatened.
He does. The thing I don't understand, I think, Joe, within all organizations, and I'm kind of surprised that this is what happens in the Steelers organization, is that there's not more communication internally. I mean, if you wanted to just tell Ben, hey, you know what? We're looking at a quarterback. We really like him as an athlete. We're not really excited about the availability of what we're seeing defensively. So we'd like to grab him now to sit behind you for a few years. Not how do you feel about that, because nobody has to get his permission, but we just wanted to let you know, don't be surprised. I mean, what could have been wrong with that conversation? And so, and it's just when you see the franchise players, quarterbacks, guys that have been there for 10 years plus, and they're coming out going, what the heck are they doing? That just surprises me, because it would be like any job where you think you're pretty secure in your job. You've had a discussion in the off season already about you're going to stay. You know how long you have left on your contract. And then they like a guy, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, we could really have used, ticket takers and counter help, but all of a sudden they're getting a new CEO, but I'm the CEO. So to me, it's just interesting that there's no internal communication, so that all this banter, trolling, and things that he says that he had, I love Ben, but he has to know that things are going to be taken out of context and text and fuel the media. He has to know that. Come on, he's not an idiot, as some of our counterparts on Twitter seem to want to call him. But it's just interesting, because I think that I don't know. He's not getting sympathy from it. Nobody ever sympathizes with Ben. They only want to throw him under the bus. So he doesn't get that sympathy. I could see Brady getting it, but he doesn't.
It's ridiculous to say that he's saying he doesn't want to mentor someone when he was totally being sarcastic. And then the other part of this, too, and like I said, he's not giving the vanilla Peyton Manning answer. He's being real, and everybody says all these things, but immediately when the guy it affects actually says it, then all of a sudden it's bad, which I think is quite laughable. And let's face it, some of these headlines are to just get people to read some of the NFL sites that are out there. It's why we didn't publish anything on this, because you know what? I don't care about getting an extra 1,000 people to read a blog post. That's not important. I don't care even if there's 1,000 people extra to listen to this show, to be completely honest, because just to be sensational and twist something in order to get somebody's eyeballs on it. This is what Ben said. He said, I assume Landry's still the 2. I don't really know. And Josh, meaning Dobbs, same thing. Last year you take him in the 4th round. So does that mean the Steelers screwed up in that pick? Do they think that he wasn't the one they thought, or has he not developed the way they thought? Why else would you take a quarterback in the 3rd round the next year? Well, this is why else, Ben. If you were paying attention and not just reading headlines and that, all you had to do was see some of the photo and video from the pro day at Oklahoma State and see just this was everywhere with the mock draft stuff. There were people that thought that the Steelers would take Mason Rudolph in the 1st round, which I was vehemently against. I absolutely love the fact that they got him in the 3rd round, and I think that what really dumped some fuel on this fire too is that they moved up in the 3rd round a few spots in order to make sure that they grabbed him. I think that's what really got Ben's attention, but to say this was a surprise is they were linked to him, and they were also they were apparently fond of Lamar Jackson out of Louisville as well. I'm glad that one didn't work out in the same way. I'm glad he's learning from Flacco, and I wonder, are people saying the same things now with Joe Flacco? Because they used a 1st-round pick on Lamar Jackson. So,
there's a message being sent there. There was actually an article also in Sports Illustrated on Flacco, and I saw a bunch of retweets by people with the blue check mark saying, yeah, that's what we're hearing too, that he's heading into his last year of his contract, and they paid him so much money after his fluke win of the Super Bowl from a really bad – I'm sorry, to me that was a really bad call against 49ers, but that's just me. But
it's fine. I if I had it my way, like I said, when the power went out, they could have just terminated the game and not finished it. I would have been okay. The Harbaugh Bowl, I didn't like either one of them, so I was cool with it.
I didn't either, but I was like, oh my God, that was pass interference. But yeah, we won't even go there for this. But I just think it's interesting because I think, one, Ben probably shouldn't have acted so surprised. I think that his comments, even though they were real, and I asked some of the same questions, and I didn't take them as a negative, I think he probably should have at least known better. I don't think he owes anybody anything, but I think that known better in the meaning that he knows that there's going to be spin from the media. But the thing is that I think that Ben's a leader. I think that he is excited to get back for the season based on what I'm seeing and what the comments are. And he never sits out. He never doesn't show up. He even shows up to, OTAs and the beginning workouts. I mean, he is their franchise. And I'm just surprised there wasn't a conversation before. But I think Mason Rudolph is going to have definitely a rude awakening when he sees what it means to be a Steeler, what it means to be in competition in that quarterback room between the other two, obviously not Ben. But the biggest thing, we do have a quarterback that has been injured. And so do we need somebody solid, and are they sold on Dobbs? Apparently not. Landry is respectable. And I say that meaning that what they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, throw Landry in. But I mean, when they went out and got Mike Vick, when we had Landry, that shows you they're not confident that he could take them back to the Super Bowl. He basically is respectable for the moment. And I think with Mason Rudolph, I truly believe they think that could be the future. And everybody's got to get on board with that without causing the controversy.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to be in a position where you're back to trying to grab somebody like Kent Graham or Mike Tomczak. I loved Mike Tomczak too, but face it, these guys weren't Tommy Maddox. They weren't Ben Roethlisberger. They weren't Terry Bradshaw. Cordell Stewart was interesting because he did the whole slash thing and then ended up playing quarterback, and he had some success and he had some failures, and he was benched and then he was a starter again, and et cetera, et cetera. That's what they're trying to avoid here. They have a succession a process here with life after Ben, where you don't want to be in, mediocre. And that's kind of where, he was a little upset, I think, too. He was talking about Martavis Bryant and how hard he worked. But he also said that's the business of football. And that was something that just came to my mind, too, in thinking about the business of football. I believe about a year ago, former outside linebacker Carlos Emmons, we had him here on the show, and I had the opportunity to speak with him. And he was talking about, I believe it was Joey Porter that maybe took his spot. I'm trying to think who it was. And he was talking about, how he was like a 7th round draft pick. He had to work his way into what he got, and then he had to fight to stay there. And then you see when somebody gets drafted and they're behind you and they're the hot, shiny new toy, and it's a business. And he consistently talked about that, how, it's difficult. You don't want to train your replacement necessarily, but life is short. It's very short if you're in the National Football League. So it's a very interesting kind of correlation there, because that's exactly what, Ben's in his mid to approaching late 30s here. And the Steelers are looking at this young guy. Now, you got a vanilla answer from Mason Rudolph when he was asked about this. I think it's surprising these guys even, are open and talking about any of this. It's just, get on the phone, talk with each other. I'm kind of actually surprised I didn't hear Ben say, well, you know what, I called him up and congratulated him and welcomed him to the Steelers or anything like that. That's the thing that I thought was missing from all of that.
I did too.
That should have been part of this. But Mason says,
well, did you hear the Cincinnati coach? Did you hear Marvin Lewis say that we were bugging their room, or the Steelers were, because they wanted him? So that was funny to me.
He's got the wrong team. They're up where they sell clam chowder. So Mason said he's a competitor, meaning Ben. Obviously, he has a lot of confidence in himself, like I do. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. I would expect him to say that. So he took the high road there, and of course, immediately everybody is all over that, like a fly on what, and saying, well, this guy's got his head on straight. I mean, why does everybody got to be a prima donna? I think it's just, if you're in the NFL and you're kind of celebrity status for so long and have any type of success, it's almost like people turn on you, because there was nobody that hated Ben Roethlisberger for taking over for Tommy Maddox and doing the things he did as a rookie and second-year player and early in his NFL career with the Super Bowl appearances and everything like that. Ben was absolutely adored and loved. And then, he did a couple jag-off type things and maybe less revered, but, that stuff I think is in the past. You got lots of other players, certainly Steelers, that have had their share of problems, and probably they're probably more than happy that social media didn't exist back then to help shine a big spotlight or two on all of that stuff. So that kind of flies under the radar a little more than maybe it would in the present day type of situation. But I didn't think a whole lot of everything that Ben said. It's kind of even silly that we're even talking about all this right now. But I wonder if people will just forget about it, like back when Martavis Bryant said that Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't his replacement. And you got to think too, everybody thought that was a luxury pick. We didn't have the luxury of asking or hearing Ben speak about that last year, where, hey, we got this loaded wide receiver room. Why aren't we drafting defense? Well, same difference. We trade away Martavis Bryant and now get James Washington. Is that not a win now pick? I think it is. I think Terrell Edmunds could be a win now pick, but this team doesn't have the holes they used to have a few years ago when they started three rookies basically on their defense. All of those guys are still here, and they're still, they're entrenched in their positions, and they brought in some veterans on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know. There may only be one or two rookie starters, if there's even that, assuming James Washington gets into a starting role, assuming Terrell Edmunds is in some type of starting role. Everybody wanted to replace Shazier, but there weren't that many guys in the draft capable of doing that. So, and we still don't know that his football story's over. He could be back, so why replace him? You know what I mean? I get it. Ben's looking to win. He wants to win now because he knows that window of opportunity isn't going to be open for very much longer for himself. But the Steelers are looking at it from a standpoint of, hey, we could have a core group or nucleus of guys that could take us into the next generation. And wouldn't that be nice, Steelers fans, if you could say that? Packers fans haven't suffered a whole lot of misery over the course of maybe 25 years either, having that succession program in place from Favre to Rodgers. And everybody always talked about it, and I always said, that's an exception to the rule, but wouldn't it be nice if this were the rule? So give Ben a pass. Enjoy what you're seeing over the next 3 to 5 years before he decides to hang up his cleats, because he is a special player and he deserves a little bit of leeway, and he has the right to say all of the things he said, and I don't think much of any of it should be taken in a negative connotation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's ready to come back and really lead for a couple of years, and I'm hoping he was hoping that the retirement stuff would end, but I think now it's just fueled another fire, because I just think they like having Ben, out there. They like using him as a punching bag, but let's just say he needs to probably tone it down a bit. So,
you know what? That's a very good point too that I thought of. Maybe the kid, maybe Mason Rudolph, maybe he pushes Ben. I think another guy that helps push Ben is Randy being in that spot. Randy Fichtner now. That's his guy. That's his buddy. That's Ben's buddy. Now he's there as the OC. He's going to push him. I think the other guy that really pushes a lot of this is Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's made it fun for a lot of these guys and injected some youth, injected some energy into the offensive side of the ball. Maybe the whole team, just the locker room presence that he brings. So you got a little bit of all of that kind of mixing in here, where things aren't the same old, same old. They're not mundane, and it's spicing things up, and it should make for an interesting situation. People are going to talk about as soon as these guys start throwing. We got some rookie camps around the way, some OTAs, mini camps, and then, of course, training camp. So I'm looking forward to seeing what all this looks like. And, of course, everyone's going to be waiting to see what Mason Rudolph does when he's out there on the field, likely throwing the guys that are going to be practice squad or cut type guys. So I don't expect a whole lot, but still the same. We can't wait.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for the season, and I can't believe it's May already. But I'm looking forward to it. So
I'm looking forward to the cold weather, so I could sit inside the house, not have to cut grass, and eat toast. Boom.
Yeah,
See?
You need to move on from that. We're not into cold weather anymore.
I was trying to just wrap everything with a nice, pretty bow. Hey, thank you for showing up again, Terry. I hate to say it like that. You're always Mrs. Reliable when it comes to when Brian isn't reliable. So I appreciate it. I'm sure all our listeners do too.
Well, we can't wait to get back to our WTF segments in the start of the season.
Oh, I'm sure we could probably do a couple of those soon. I'm sure there's going to be some more stuff. So we'll be back at it. So her name is Terry. Mine's not. Terry is a name that you might think you're a guy, maybe. So I got to put that out there. Terry Bradshaw was a guy. It's one of those, kind of neutral names.
Yeah, very female here. Yeah, female perspective on football.
And, of course, my name is Joe. Very manly name, very masculine. So unlike Brian. So anyways, we're going to cut it off there. Any questions, any comments, leave them for us, folks. Kind of interested. If you didn't hear the full interview, it's available. Just search for 93.7 The Fan. Put Ben or Roethlisberger or something with it too. It shows up. TuneIn Radio has it right on the web. I know it's on the Apple Podcasts and everything like that too. Listen to the whole thing in context before you make some judgment based off of Bleacher Reports or Sports Illustrated or anything like that. Till next time, be safe, be good, and we will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.